Hello everyone, welcome to CodeSoft. In this video, we are going to talk about SQL in database management system. Now, SQL, the full form of SQL is structured query language. With the full form itself, we can see that this is a language. So when a language comes, certain commands come. So SQL are having certain commands which will help us query our database. Now we need to note down here that these database can only be relational because SQL works for only relational database. Also, all the relational database like MySQL, Informatics, Oracle, and so on, they all use this standard SQL language only. So if I talk about the definition of SQL, so SQL enables a user to create, read, update, and delete relational databases and table. So all the actions that are related to the table, which we call the CRUD actions, so all those actions are performed using SQL language only. Now SQL is declarative in nature. This means that SQL, when we write the commands, it tells the computer that what we have to do, not how we have to do. So that is why it is declarative, and this makes it different from other programming languages or the high level languages like C, C++. Also, SQL is a domain specific language. So domain specific means that the SQL works only for relational databases or not for non-relational databases. Now in this image you can see that a user and table are being connected using SQL. So if any user wants anything from the table, it will require certain SQL commands, certain SQL queries which will get executed, and we can fetch certain information from this. So this is about SQL. Now let's talk about the applications of SQL. So clearly we have seen the applications, that yes, it is very helpful because it helps us retrieve all the data from the data table. So let's look at each point one by one. First, it allows us to access data in the relational database management system. So as we saw that we can perform CRUD actions with this, so obviously it can access the data in the relational database, and without SQL we cannot use that data, right? The next one is that SQL allows us to describe the data. Now, with the help of describe the data means that with the help of SQL, we can know the schema of the table. What do we mean by schema? Here, schema means that to know all the fields present in the table, not the records, just the field names. So, with the help of SQL, we can know that how the table is being created, what all fields it is having. The next one is that SQL allows us to define the data in a database and manipulate the data. Same point. Also now next one is it allows us to create and drop databases and tables. So all these things, all these applications are related to certain commands that are present in the SQL, and we will look at each one of them in the upcoming slides. So these are certain SQL applications. Now, what is a SQL query? So SQL query is like the code that you write to that we send it to the computer, and through which you can get the data that you want from the tables. So queries are requests made to the DBMS for specific informations. Queries are based on certain English like SQL commands. So basically these SQL commands are very simple in nature. Like if you want to use and, you have to simply write A and D. So all these commands are very English like and very easy in nature. So that these, with the help of these commands, we can create a query, and that query we can send it to the DBMS system, and it can fetch us with the information from the database. These are used for insertion, deletion, and retrieval, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the classification of SQL commands. So SQL commands are classified into four different sub languages. So these languages are, the first one is the DDL or the data definition language. So with the word definition, we mean that these commands that are present in this language are used to define the table. Now by define, we mean that to create the table, maybe add new rows, delete certain rows, rename the table, all these commands, the alteration of the data or the creation of data, those things come under the DDL. The second one is the DML or the data manipulation language. Now by manipulation we mean performing transaction or doing certain actions. So all the insertion of data, updatation of data, or you can say the deletion of data comes under this DML command. So basically the DML command are used to create the records or the rows of the table, right? The third one is the DCL or the data control language. Now, DCL is used to control the access of our records or table to certain users in a data. So basically, if you want to restrict certain users from not using a database, so the admin section of the database can restrict them using these DCL commands. So these commands are related to providing security to our database. Last one is the TCL or the transaction control language. So these are used to control the transactions of the data. So by transactions, I mean the insertion, deletion, or updatation of the data. All these things are controlled using these TCL commands. So basically, if I go by the definition of TCL, TCL is used to manage the changes made to the data in a table by the DML statements. Now in the upcoming video, we will see each language in detail and what all commands are under it. We'll see them, we'll see the examples and also implement them. So please stay tuned.